One of the things I would like to touch on is the person of El-Rufai. If you followed me for any length of time, you will know very clearly that I have little love for El-Rufai. I love his humanity, just like I love all human beings. But I find very little that I can agree with that man. I'm not one of those who mourned his incarceration. The only thing I would mourn is the fact that the law does not appear to be the basis for that incarceration or for his current travels. I am sure if we were to live in a law-based society, there are more than enough bases upon which to prosecute Nasir El-Rufai. The disappearance of Dadi-yata is but one of many reasons. That is before you even start speaking to the many killings in southern Kaduna, the Kagoro killings and everything. But when El-Rufai was picked up, I knew, like every other Nigerian, that he wasn't being picked up on account of anything he did wrong. Not that he hasn't done a lot wrong. But I do recall very clearly the words of Oshiomhole, where he said famously, "Join us and your sins will be forgiven." So I imagine that those who leave them have their sins unhearted and punished. As long as you punish sins, I wouldn't have had anything to say against it. Like my friend, Mr. Gbemi Holloway will say, if you don't want to be witch hunted, make sure you are not a witch. El Rufai is more than a witch, and I had very little sympathies for him when he was being witch hunted. But his sudden release in the course of this last week underscores the reality of our judicial system. In the first place, this man was lawfully remanded in custody, but of course, he was magisterially freed on account of the death of his mother. You clap for compassion, yeah, but where is the place of the law? A person duly remanded in custody could only ever have been freed by a judicial pronouncement, not executive fiat. Whoever the person may be exercising that fiat, it still remains a fiat. Extrajudicial does not rise to the level expected of a space ruled by law. But then, Nigeria has hardly ever been ruled by law. It's always ever been the domain of small-minded men who rule without any regard for law or due process. So El-Rufai is at home today because his mother died. How about all the many persons whose mothers and fathers and children, wives and husbands have died whilst they've been incarcerated, mostly unjustly? But then, those are the poor. We're not talking about a member of the ruinous class, the class that has kept Nigeria where it is today. In that same week, they had their APC convention, and you could see Senator Common Sense sat amongst the senseless, properly advertising the fact that he is nothing but a vacuous toad. Isa Salami also had his say. All I'll say to those who might be looking to eulogize the man is that they should go and read the NJC report on the gentleman. He's not deserving of any respect or response. And I'll leave that as that. This week, I'd like to speak to the subject, Nigeria, the duty to become. What do I mean by the duty to become? If you think back, you remember a time when Chief Obafemi Awolowo described Nigeria as a mere geographical expression. What did he mean? He meant that there was no Nigerian nation. He was pointing to the fact that Nigeria remained an aspiration at best. So the question is this: what have we done since he said so in the 50s? Have we become? How have we become? Where are we? How have we passed the duty to become? How have we achieved nationhood as a collective. Make no mistake about it, the Nigerian state is a collection of disparate nations. At the last count, we speak probably about 200 and something languages. Languages belong to nations. Those are probably the number of nations you can say have been trapped within this space. And the aspiration has always been to form a collective who share common purpose, common destiny out of this disparate whole and bring them together as a nation. Now, in doing this, there are multiple ways that nations are built. But what has become of the nation that was promised, where we spoke of, even though tribes and tongues may differ, in brotherhood we stand. One of the first things you do when you're looking to build a nation is to give them common destinies, common aspirations. Give them reasons to want to band together as one. Today, you look across the length and breadth of Nigeria, you find a shift from the aspirational citizenship that was promised at its foundation. You find men becoming tribesmen. Instead of a national debate, all you get is our turn. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The Nigerian nation that was to become had multiple milestones that it set for itself. One of them was health for all by the year 2020. It was modeled after the Alma-Ata Declaration. The same people came together and said, oh, there must be the Abuja Declaration. This was when African leaders collectively sat together and agreed to pledge 15% of their budget to healthcare. Nigeria has rarely ever exceeded 4 to 7%. So in the area of healthcare, Nigeria as a nation, quote and unquote, have failed woefully. We could not even meet our own declaration. Other Africans came together in Abuja. They called it the Abuja Declaration. But we, who hosted the collective, to come to the point of declaring that this country will have health accessible to its subjects or citizens by the year 2000, we failed woefully. And today, Nigeria is even more unhealthy than ever. And to compound our situation, we have a new national health policy that is completely dependent on America, and our health data has become available to the Americans simply because we failed to become. 2020, we said there will be health care for all. 2020 was 26 years ago. An entire generation lost to slogan. The same 2000, housing was going to be available for all. We launched it in 1991, National Housing Program, we called it. It was going to give us affordable housing for Nigerians. We were targeting 17 to 20 million houses. But today, we have a deficit in the housing stock that is stratospheric. When you even think about it, you find that, one, we failed woefully at every point to offer any concrete plans to achieve this housing for all goal. Nigeria today has a housing deficit of almost 30 million units. People are still living under bridges in the urban areas, and in the rural areas, people are living in what should not even pass for accommodation. 1991, we launched this. This is where we are today. Government cannot even provide affordable housing. You should see the joke in doing states as rich as Lagos. They'll tell you that they are providing affordable housing, and you're asking people to come and pay in excess of 50 million naira. Even the civil servants at director level cannot afford housing. They are perpetual tenants, subjected to the whims and caprices of exploitative landlords. Where the state has failed to provide housing, they began to roll out silly laws designed to provide social housing based off private capital. This is the evil that has overtaken our country. To build slogans all the time. How about Vision 2010? That was Abacha's plan. He targeted single-digit inflation, less corruption, democratization, anchoring the country to the rule of law. That died with Abacha. And then the United Nations came with the Millennium Development Goal, brought all kinds of targets, deadlines, global pacts to eradicate poverty, hunger, and disease by 2015. They were going to do that by 2015. Today, we have one of the highest poverty rates in the entire world. We have overtaken India as the poverty capital of the world. Yet, we have our Millennium Development Goal. The reality is that today, you have 140 million Nigerians living below the poverty line. The poverty ratio in Nigeria today is 62%. 62% of our populace are living in poverty. As at 2019, it was just 40%. But the situation has escalated exponentially. And today, 62% of Nigerians are living below the poverty line. When you turn these into actual numbers, you're talking about 141 million Nigerians who are living in poverty, multi-dimensional poverty. In the first place, they don't have any electricity. Take that off the table in relation to these ones. They have no water to drink. Take that in relation to these ones. No housing. Because when you are talking about living below the poverty line, you're talking especially about those who are already rejected by society, living on the edge of society. Future is bleak, nothing to hope for. This is the seeding ground for terrorism, the seeding ground for religious extremism, the seeding ground for criminality. That is where we are today as a collective. Oh yeah, electricity for all by the year 2000. $16 billion later, this is where we are. The national grid is always collapsing. Our grid, our rulers' grid never collapses, but the national grid constantly collapses. Constantly. The only thing you can be sure of, whether you are in band A, B, C, or Z, you'll be lucky to have 4 hours of electricity in a day. Even Bulaba and the presidency have moved away from the national grid. They've now become environmentalists, greens. You have solar power in the seat of power. Me and you, the common man, have been completely forgotten. And then the president was busy crowing at his APC convention, talking about how Nigeria has moved ahead of so many. He said we were second in renewable energy. The shameless lies that issues forth from those who rule Nigeria is a case study on its own. But that is not the story for today.